You want to hire a cleaner. How do you go about it? Now, number one, make sure you can afford it. Most cleaners in the UK, I think you're looking at between £12 and £20 an hour. That will depend on a range of things, partly where you are, whether you provide the stuff or they provide the stuff. Agency workers, obviously, you pay more because the agency takes a cut, but they're usually insured. You might not always be able to get the same people who come. Usually they chuck a team into vans and they just go round like a dose of salts. That's fine. They're insured. Most of them have received some sort of check. If you're not in, you might prefer that. Equally, if you're in, you might prefer to get somebody local. It's your home. You get to choose. So work out what you want doing. Now, this is really worth working out before you start looking for somebody, because everybody would love to think that you could pay your cleaner for 2 hours and you will come home and your home will be spotless. It won't. They can't do it in the time. So you have to make sure that they can do what you want them to do in the time that you have allotted, and you do need to ask them if you're allowing them sufficient time. Some people, it's the dust that gets them down. Other people just need to make sure the sinks and the loos are clean. Some people, it's the kitchen. Some people can do all of that stuff, but they need people to go into corners and turn out cupboards or deep clean things and do that on a regular basis. It's, many years ago, you'd have the charwoman come in to do the heavy work. So work out what you need doing and how much money you can afford and how much time you think you've got. So then you're going to either get an agency or a person. Now, I believe that personal recommendation is the best way to go. If you've got a friend who shares your values and she has a cleaner, don't poach other people's cleaners. It's really bad form. But ask if her cleaner has some spare time. You want to interview somebody first because you want to know that you, especially if you're going to be there, that you gel, and ask them. You need to be quite specific about what you want doing, and what you expect from them. And you need to ask them if they're prepared and able to do it. For example, I will do pretty much anything. I'll clean your oven, I'll walk your dog, I'll pick up, and I have no problems with it. Other cleaners don't do ovens simply because they take a lot of time and they feel that by the time they've done the oven, they haven't done the hoovering and people don't appreciate it, which is a valid point. Sometimes I will do a job that's taken me hours and then somebody will sniff because it's all I've done and they weren't aware how long it had taken. Polishing silver is one of those jobs. It takes a remarkably long time to polish quite a small amount of silver. So, if you've asked your cleaner to polish the silver, and you come back and she hasn't done anything but polish 4 candlesticks and 14 picture frames, you're doing well there because it's fiddly and time consuming. So you need to write down what you want doing, and you need to have a good look around your house and an honest look around your house as well. Some women will happily tidy for you, but you have to allow them time to tidy. Some people don't like tidying. Some people, it depends. I had a client who I needed to tidy for, but I always struggled because she had growing children and there were mountains of clothes everywhere, and I didn't know whether the clothes were clean clothes, dirty clothes, incoming clothes, outgoing clothes, strange. I had no idea what they were, and I didn't like moving them in case they were mid-sort. So are they providing their own materials and equipment, or are you providing them? I'm on a bike, so people provide them to a degree to my specifications, but again, it varies. Some of my clients are great believers in if it's made by ICI and it glows in the dark, they want it, and others would prefer me to use nothing but plain water. So personally, I prefer to lean towards the minimalist eco version, but equally, I want things to be effective. So I do resort to, the nuclear option on occasion because I kind of need it. However, so you're looking for somebody. if you don't know somebody, Facebook is a really good way to get somebody local. In a thread regarding this a while back on TikTok this morning, somebody said, most cleaners require 2 hours work because you might have to travel 40 minutes, which they might. I don't know where you live. I probably go on about a 2-mile radius of where I live. And it doesn't take me more than, 15 minutes on the bike to get there. And of course, a local lady might happily come in for an hour. I've got several clients I just do for an odd hour here and there. Just run the hoover over, check the kitchen sinks clean the sink, clean the loo, and that does them nicely, knock the dust around. And it's all good, just so that I've kept on top of it. Write out your list, ask for personal recommendations. You will find various people are recommended. Have a chat with them over Messenger, get a feel for them. If you're going to feel awkward, ask them over Messenger. I need my oven cleaning. Are you prepared to clean ovens? Will you clean windows? Do you mind dogs? Some cleaners don't like dogs or cats. They can be allergic. Will you change my beds? How long do you think it will take you to do my house? I can afford 3 hours. I have a 6-bedroom house and 4 Labradors. What do you think you're going to be able to get done in that time? And the answer to that is the kitchen, nothing else. Most people will have a formula. I mean, I roughly, to keep somewhere relatively decent, it's a magic formula between how many bedrooms. You allow roughly an hour a bedroom or an hour a person, and then there's a little bit more if there's dogs and cats, and it does depend on the dog. Dogs that shed huge quantities of fur in massive drifts mean you have to hoover a lot, but also you have to empty the hoover and keep the hoover clear of dog fur, and maintaining equipment is part of doing your job. That takes time. I have to do that. So if you're very clear about what you want and set boundaries in the first place, don't be afraid to make it very, very clear, because otherwise both of you, it's slightly awkward. You don't like to ask somebody and they've just assumed. The tea is there, the coffee is there, please help yourself. That saves argument. It's a hot day, I've put something in, the biscuits are in the tin, help yourself. Let people make themselves a cup of tea or coffee, honestly. It costs you pennies. The thing is, as well, is that you need to treat your cleaners with respect. And they don't need to be your friend. That's fine. You don't have to be friendly with them, but you do need to treat them with respect and pay them properly. They won't steal from you, because that would be pointless. Why would somebody steal something from you? Because they're doing themselves out of paid work. So it would be a ludicrous thing. However, if you're genuinely worried about that, go to an agency and make sure that they're insured. And then if you're losing something, it's a bit awkward. But be clear. Be clear about what you want. I would like to pay you for 2 hours. It really matters to me that I've got dogs. Really matters to me. If you do nothing else, can you please make sure that you hoover properly, get down the stairs and get rid of as much dust as possible? I'm not too fussed about the rest, but that really bothers me and I never have time. Or, I'm sorry, I'm struggling. I suffer from depression. I can only afford to give you 2 hours work a week. What can you do? I would really appreciate if maybe you did some washing up and you tidied for me. Just make the place look a little bit better. If you are clear about what you want and somebody is not able to give you what you feel you're paying for, you're quite within your rights to say, I don't wish to be awkward, but I was hoping that you would be able to do these things that we discussed when I first employed you, and you don't appear to be able to do them. Is there a reason? There might be a reason. There might be a reason. Your dog is the size of a house, and every time I go near the stairs, he bites me. That's a reason. There might not be a reason, in which case it might be better to say, I appreciate you coming, but I suspect we may not be suited each other. So here's a week's money, and thank you, and then look for somebody else. Don't be too picky. Some people can be really, really ridiculously picky. We're human, we have off days. And the other thing is that it's very difficult to guarantee that a house is spotless. Even when I leave it, you know, it only takes one pass over the floor and there can be bits on the carpet. Just because when I left it, there was no fur on the carpet doesn't mean that your dog doesn't shed in the meantime. Cobwebs can be fiendishly difficult to spot until the evening when you turn the different lights on. So, you know, I mean, I'm not saying let somebody get away with murder, but be aware that, you know, it is unlikely to be perfect all the time. I mean, if it is, and you want that, then you will pay for it. And if you pay for it, and that's what you expect, and you give people enough time, that's fine. But it depends what you want, and always ask. Don't be frightened of asking, because most cleaners are really helpful. They like making a place look better. They really relish the challenge of walking into a place that looks like it exploded and walking out a few hours later, leaving it as neat as a pin and smelling fresh. There's a sense of achievement in doing it. We probably won't go into cupboards and into drawers unless you ask us to and tell us that we may. We may find out more about you than you think we know. So we're not going to talk about it. We don't gossip. Why would we? In fact, although we know it, most of the time it shoots straight over our heads because we've seen it all before. Honestly, you know, that tray of really grungy sex toys under your bed, most of the time we'll ignore it. Sometimes you might come in and find that we've polished it and bagged it up, but that's probably unlikely. We've seen it all before, honestly. If there's a genuine health hazard, and sometimes there is, that, you know, maybe one of the children has been sick or an elderly relative is mildly incontinent, make sure that we know and that we're prepared to deal with it and we've got suitable protective clothing. There are very few accidents or happenings that can't be cleaned with, but it is really unreasonable to expect, all right, really unreasonable to, you know, expect your lady to come in without any warning and discover that your 3-year-old has had diarrhea and vomiting and their bathroom looks like it exploded, and expect it to be perfect when you get back. In fact, some might not do it unless you give them prior warning. It's a two-way relationship, but you need to be absolutely clear, set your boundaries, feel comfortable with somebody, treat them properly, and they will treat you properly. And don't be afraid if you're not comfortable with them. I've parted company with customers who couldn't stand the sight of me. We just didn't get on at all. But fine. It's fine. It's not personal. You don't have to like me, and you don't have to have me in your house. If you don't like me, you can say no, and that's fine. But if you stick to those rules, you shouldn't do too badly. But I know there are some of you who are struggling and feel a bit ashamed. Don't be ashamed. Trust me, don't be ashamed. It's fine. As long as we know what we're walking into and we've agreed that we'll do it, we'll attack that mess with absolute gusto. And we can also be quite helpful if you're feeling a bit miserable. You know, I've had several customers who, you know, I no longer have because they've died and they were elderly. And it's been a pleasure knowing that I can make, you know, the final few years of their life a lot easier, and I can keep an eye on them and let relatives know if I think maybe, you know, maybe things aren't quite right. I can contact the doctor, I can contact relatives, or I can contact friends just to make sure that everything's okay. So, you know, if you can run to it, a good cleaner is worth her weight in gold. So hopefully, if you want one, you'll find somebody lovely.